My name is Thanh Cung. Vietnamese name would be Cung Hoàng Thành. I came from Vietnam, came to the U.S. in 1975. My family settled in Fresno, and I first came to Little Saigon. I think at that time it wasn't called Little Saigon yet. Westminster in 1987 for my residency, and I've been living in Orange County since. I can tell you my first exposure to Westminster at that time was, I think, back in 1977 or 78. Drove down to Westminster with my parents, and because we wanted to visit the Vietnamese community in Westminster. And I remember at that time, Bosa was the main street in Little Saigon. I remember going to a Vietnamese sandwich place called Ba Lẹ. And for me, it was a very memorable experience because the sandwich that we had in Vietnam when I grew up was very much different than the American sandwich, which come in slides. So Vietnamese sandwiches use French baguette and pork inside. So I came in 75 and 77 or 78 was the first time I had the Vietnamese sandwich again at this Ba Lẹ sandwich shop on Bosa. So that was my first exposure to Little Saigon. And so I went to school I live in Fresno, went to high school in Fresno, went to college at UC Davis, medical school there, and then I came down to UCI for my residency in 1987. And I had a couple of choices for residencies, and naturally, Orange County was my first choice because of the Vietnamese community down here. I want to come down here and work in this community eventually and be close to the food that I grew up eating. To me, Little Saigon is very important. It's like a second home away from Vietnam. It is, I think, it houses the most number of Vietnamese outside of Vietnam, freedom-loving Vietnamese. So, over the years, being close, I don't live in Little Saigon. I mean, Corona Del Mar, but I come down to Little Saigon almost weekly, mostly for the food, for great restaurants, and some cultural activities once in a while. I always question why Vietnamese settled down in Orange County in Westminster. And I think it's because after the fall of Saigon, there were, I think, maybe 4 or 5 refugee centers. And Camp Pendleton was probably one of the largest. I think it was one of the largest refugee camp at that time. And so for Vietnamese to leave the refugee camps, they have to be sponsored by certain, mostly religious organization. And I think thanks to a lot of churches, Orange County, religious organization in Orange County that sponsored mainly Vietnamese who came to the US VA Camp Pendleton. For a lot of Vietnamese, Westminster and Garden Grove and some of the cities in the area became their first home, and the one where I think played an important role in keeping these Vietnamese here, because over the years, a lot of Vietnamese who settled in colder climates slowly gravitate toward Orange County.